And good evening, Star Wars fans, coming to you live with another episode of Holotheatre. As you can see, I'm back in California. As always, I'm Dan Sorteglio, better known as D Tartag One, and I don't know who the guy to this direction is, but he sure does look dapper. I think it's Scott Lingrell. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing great, Dan. Yeah, absolutely. I wanted to dress up. I know after looking at the Holly Awards that Best Dressed was one of the awards. So I figured I'd step up my game and start looking a little nicer going forward.
That's that's fair. I mean, I like how on Saturday you were wearing like a biking shirt or like a running
Now,
shirt. You
that
weren't
was
in.
actually the Philadelphia Union soccer jersey.
Okay, you weren't in your normal polo. That was just a little bit of a surprise.
Yeah, I like it.
But we got an exciting show for you today. Scott and I are going to go break down a little bit of what you saw from Worlds this past weekend, as well as some of the stuff that's coming up with the PC. We also have a pretty in-depth interview with the world champ himself, Mr. Joe Olson. But first things first, let's talk a little bit about Worlds. So this was the first tournament you've been to in over a year, Scott. What do you
Yeah.
think about it? Like, what do you think about like everything that happened?
Well, first off, I think it was just amazing to get out there. And, for example, I want to thank Brandon Beatty, got me this shirt from
Mm-hmm.
Oregon where he was. But, I thought it was nice just for everybody to be there. I think obviously the highlight was being able to hang out with everybody Saturday night. I'm not going to lie. That was really nice after a disappointing Saturday. But yeah, I thought it was very good. I really had a good time. I was definitely challenged. I found myself rusty, of course, but it was fantastic.
That's fair. I mean, you were on stream. I want to say you were the second game, and you played against Hayes Hunter. Unfortunately, it didn't go your way, but we got you on
Yeah, I
stream.
made. Yeah, I know. And the interesting thing is, I made three mistakes that weekend. Uh, the first one was against Tom Haid. I had an Ellis and played too conservatively, and I would have overflowed him and won the game. And I lost by one differential in a true tie.
Oof.
Against Hayes, I ditched a card after the game. He told me, "Hey, I just played it wrong." Where I got rid of the battle planes. I was a little
Yeah.
too confident, didn't have enough experience in understanding how to play that matchup. And then there was a match later in the day where at the 3-2 site, I didn't deploy Lear and Karen, the cover charge guy that makes it plus X to deploy there. And he was
Okay.
able to deploy a lot of guys. And I just didn't think about it. I went and got a different musician at that one time, and I could have gotten him, and that would have probably helped me. Who knows? But
Hmm.
that's the thing, right? You make some changes, you learn from it. It's we're all a little out of experience in all the matchups, but it was a great time. Everybody had a good time, from what I could tell.
Awesome. Yeah, like it was really fun, and I know you mentioned this a little bit. Like playing games and hanging out Saturday was a blast as well. Uh, I know a lot of people, like you said, didn't really. Only 8 people made the top 8, but it was just a great weekend. I know you had to leave a little early on, but Jared, Chris Schoenthal, Gregson, everybody filled in your insanely massive shoes and just continued to make Sunday really, really well.
Well, I'll tell you, between you and we had Jan, we had there was a dozen people that were really helpful in just volunteering and doing things, and it worked really well.
Yeah, and like I said, it was just a great weekend. So, looking forward though, their PC's got a lot of stuff going on. I know over the next few weeks we're going to talk a little bit about Worlds as well as the OCS and everything. Being that the OCS playoff, the Pick'em show is
Yeah.
this Saturday at 4 p.m. Eastern. Or no, no, sorry, this Sunday 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific. So all our top 16 are going to be able to have their matches set for the first round. And I mean, once we get that bracket set, you'll actually be able to go in and get a lot of those. You'll be able to do like look and see like ahead, like who you can possibly face and everything. We'll have like a pick'em contest. We'll have like a lot of things going on for the OCS. Um, so again, like I said, if you're looking for any information on that, everything is on the forums. Hall of Famer Chris Gogolin went ahead and posted that stuff onto the forums. Everything is there. You can just go ahead and go to the OCS, the 2021 Online Championship Series. Again, it mentions the live draft and everything. If you are playing on it, you do not have to have any deck lists or anything, and you will be able to switch out your decks through once you're into the event. So I'm really looking forward to it, and I know a lot of people are looking forward to doing commentary.
Yeah, two things I want to mention, Dan. Number one is the OCS top 16 is really stacked. And that kind of led me to day 2 of Worlds, right? In the sense that it was nice, depending on your point of view. I really thought it was good to have a good group of people in day 3 this year that maybe haven't been there before. And it, whatever it might be, there's a million reasons why, but I thought that was good. And even looking at the OCS, it's not the same people. There are a lot of people that are the same, but it is a good, diverse group of people with this, which we like.
Oh, agreed. Like you can't like the two names that stick out to me right away are Timo Dussel, Dylan, and Chris Hall, who is Joker King. I believe both of them are in their first OCS and everything, but at the same time, both of them played extremely well this past year. Joker King was the only person to defeat Joe Olsen at any point in this year. So, like, that right there is pretty amazing. He defeated him
in person?
No, on the GEMP PC. They played on the GEMP PC, and Joker King upset Joe.
Yeah, it was really good, and that's the thing is what I like about it is the meta is kind of wide open. I know that, I know there was some discussion about, hey, is it too much rock paper scissors? But I mean, at the beginning of the show, I know there were 3 matchups that I could have easily won that I lost. So I think it's a matter of I came in. There was a lot of cool decks that I played against, and it wasn't like the same stuff every time.
Yeah,
I enjoyed it.
So beyond the OCS, we also have the Outrider Cup. That's going to be coming up soon. We're going to be doing that every 2 years, so look forward to that. I know it's going to be the best of Europe's team versus the best of the American team. Joe and Bastion are in their collective pods right now, thinking about who they want to pick as their captain pick, and thinking about getting all the meta and everything together for that. The Jawa Cup is going to be coming back again in November as well. I'm excited for that. I know the Jawa Council is going to come up with some good bands on decks. Maybe we'll see like CCT. Maybe we'll see like, I don't know, OA. OA was really popular over Nationals map. So I don't know about that. And then January, the NPC is coming back.
Yep.
Like the in-person NPC. I know Chris Schoenthal announced that this past weekend, so I'm looking forward to that as well. Not sure if I'm going to play in it or not, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Yeah, it should be fun. I know that, with the Jawa Cup and the Outrider Cup, we saw some of the custom sweatshirts that they won for the Americans team that won at Worlds, so that was cool. And we've got the logo that Ming designed, so I'm looking forward to whoever wins having kind of a new design for the team this year. A new sweatshirt, maybe that they'll have a different color, so it'll be cool.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I like doing the best of the best. Right now, like I'm looking forward to like what I know Joe. I know I talked to Joe a little bit about it over the weekend and everything. He's obviously going to be a part of it. I think he's saying that Justin Desai is going to be on it. Greg Shaw is a possibility. Jared Napolitano is also a possibility. Trying to think of who else.
Well, I know I'm not going to be available. I'm sure just in case they plan on asking me, I think I'm going to be a little busy this year. What? I appreciate the offer though, but I just don't want to have them pick me and make it awkward where I decline. So I'll just remove my name right now to make it easier.
Hey, I told them they should pick Robbie. I mean, he's coming off a top 8 at Worlds with WAP.
Yeah, he did really well.
So, really quick, before we get into this Joe Olson interview and everything, let's go ahead and talk a little bit about Swing and a Miss. We don't have really any graphics for it today, but we're going to have some good ones. So, our first one, we're going to be talking about the OCS playoffs for this.
Hey, real quick, Dan, can I mention one thing? Harpster is in chat.
Yeah.
And one of the things that Harpster said is he started playing on GEMP. And I know when the special version of GEMP, what's the extra? What do we call that? The
GEMP Arena.
Better version of it.
GEMP Arena.
The arena version, yeah, that was intentionally made. I know Steve sometimes had some problems viewing on a computer screen, and they so it could be a little better for players that maybe can't look at a computer screen as well. So it's kind of cool that Harpster was able to play. Hopefully he's trying out that version.
Yeah, like I was glad to see Harpster. That's a man who loves his foils, so hopefully he can get some foils for GEMP and everything.
Absolutely. So I apologize. Go on.
Oh no,
I just wanted to say that.
So okay, so our first question is going to be regarding our number 1 seed for the OCS playoffs. That person, who is Paul Myers, will be selecting Brian Fred as their first round opponent.
You know, I feel like he's got him. You know, I feel that when you're in someone's head, you take him. I'm going to go with a hit. I think he's going to pick him.
You know, I think we had the chance last year of seeing that, and Paul left us all hanging. Paul, if you're watching, don't do this again. Like, I want to see some good matches. Don't get me wrong, like, everybody who made it is a really good player. I want to see the Brian Fred versus Paul Myers match.
I agree.
Okay. Next one. The match that needs to happen is the Timo Dusel versus Chris Hall match. The Joker King.
Yeah, I'm going to go with a hit. I would love to see that, right? Have the two rookies in the OCS go against each other. I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, I've been saying it for like the last couple of weeks. It needs to happen. I know that Bastion might pick Timo, being that Bastion doesn't have to, he doesn't have to play against somebody over in America and, and deal with the whole time zone disparity. But it needs to happen. It really does. Okay.
Without question.
Our next question is... So, let me think. Golden God, Charlie Arlinson is the most... how do I say this? He's the player that nobody wants to see. I think it's a hit outside of like Joe and Bastion and maybe Justin Desai. But if like you're in those top spots, Charlie's one of those players like he went 12-0 and 11-1 back-to-back months.
Yeah, it's definitely a hit. And the other thing about it too is he knows people that have some really creative decks, right? Everyone talks about Walseth as a Hall of Famer because of his ability to help, what he does with the students, but he makes some amazing decks. And if Charlie wants to bust out something that's a little different, he can go and pull out one of Mark's decks, and that's a scary thing. So I absolutely think it's a hit.
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing with you. Like I said, Charlie went 12-0, Charlie went 11-1, and he did this in the car on his phone Wi-Fi. Like, that's insane to me. So I think Charlie's one of those players, like, he just barely missed top 8 at Worlds. Yeah, I think Charlie could do some real damage in the OCS playoffs. And then the last question is, someone who has not won the OCS championship will win it this year. So
I agree. You're all on hits. So I think it's fantastic. I absolutely plan it to happen. I think it's going to happen.
Bastion and Bastion's won it before, and that man is just, when he wants to, he just wrecks people. So I don't know, like, don't get me wrong, I like the field, but I think Bastion, being that he didn't go to Worlds, has something, like a little bit of a chip on his shoulder. Especially now that Joe won back-to-back Worlds. Like, Bastion likes winning.
He's competitive. Absolutely.
Okay.
I think what's going to happen is we're going to see some people that we didn't expect to win. I think they're going to win. Somebody's going to win this that
I can see
nobody
it.
expected to win.
I can see it. Okay. So at this point, we do have an interview with Joe Olson that I did earlier today. It is about an hour-long interview. It's a really good interview. We go over some of the stuff that some of the matches that he had, some of why he chose the decks that he did, and yeah, just recapping a lot of what happened of this past weekend as Joe won his second consecutive world championship. So I think
He's just showing off now.
he is like he makes the Hall of Fame, and then he wins worlds. Like it's just
thing.
Joe's world. We're all just living in it.
I know what you mean.
Okay.
I'm looking forward to the interview.
So we're going to turn that on, and then I'll be back after the interview to finish up the show. So stay tuned for that, and we'll see everybody soon. Okay, so everybody, so here I am sitting with your current two-time world champ, Mr. Joe Olson. How are you doing today, Joe?
You good, Dan? How are you?
I can't complain. So you won Worlds for the second time. How does it feel?
Good. It's sort of a sigh of relief. It's a difficult thing to do, and doing it online is different than in person. So being able to get out there and play cards again was a lot of fun. And yeah, it was a fun weekend.
So right now you're sitting at literally you've won the last four majors. You are currently riding an insanely good hot streak. You won the online worlds, as you said. You won the NPC, and not only did you win the NPC, but you won it from Cabo. You won it from crappy hotel Wi-Fi. I mean, that's impressive. You went to the first in-person event in almost over a year, and went to nationals and won nationals. And then you just came off your win this past weekend at DC. You won the 2021 PC Grand Slam, as it comes down to. Like, where did all this come from?
I have to give the vast majority of credit to my team. Team 5 has just been killing it in terms of playtesting, meta calls. We started doing a weekly Discord call where we get on and chat and play games and strategize, and really kicked it up into another gear at the end of last year. And it's been their decisions on decks that put me on Hunt Down V last year. On Cryptophis was the one who made the ISB that won me the NPC. Lee Edwards, Taryn made the I Must Be Allowed to Speak call in Quaimuning this past weekend that let me beat Matt in the finals. So it's really been a team effort where everyone's been just really killing it.
What did Hayes do? Because you didn't mention Hayes at all, and I know he's part of the team, but did he do anything?
Hayes is the most constant out of all of them. Like he is not only the motivator, but he is the he's the best player on the team, and he is just constantly he goes down the craziest rabbit holes. There was one point maybe a month ago, it was right after the latest set came out, where I was busy with life for 4 or 5 days. And just wasn't on Slack at all. And he texted me and he's like, dude, I've been going down some crazy rabbit holes. You need to go read Slack from the last few days and just catch up on thoughts. Cause Hayes, and of course, he plays at a phenomenal level. He got second at nationals cause he conceded to me in the finals. But he also in 2020 won back-to-back majors in the Indoor Grand Prix and the first online NPC. And so, and then of course Phil has just been super helpful, and Eric, and just our whole team has really been super supportive and coming up with great ideas and really trying to stay on top of the meta and ahead of the meta.
So yeah, you talk about being ahead of the meta and everything. Like, you played a deck that a lot of people were putting as dead on day one at Worlds. You played this deal's getting worse all the time. a lot of people felt like with the changes to the free ride combo, making it so that you could get rid of your opponent's ATSTs or your unpiloted vehicles, stopping the reacts and everything. A lot of people thought that was dead, especially like not only that, but like the change to Goldenrod. You said you went 3-1 with the deck. Do you think the deck is dead, or do you think it just needed to be in the right meta?
Yeah, I do think it's a sort of a specific meta call. I had a number of dark decks that I like. Normally I'm locked into decks a lot earlier than I was this year, especially on dark side. And it was really the night before I was deciding between Brigham and Map and Deal, and you can see that in my team. Phil and I ran Tigidawat, Hayes and Cal ran Brigham, and Lee ran Map, and they were all fairly equal in my mind. One big advantage of Tigidawat for me was that it doesn't take a lot of thinking. It's a very straightforward game plan, and it's like you get out your walkers and you get out your occupation and you do your stuff, and versus like a deck like Black Sun that I chose for the next day that has a lot more, a lot higher ceiling and a lot lower floor. It takes a lot more to really pilot it well, and on day 3 or day 2, however you want to call it, I really wanted the chance to outplay my opponents. Whereas, the advantage of Deal on the first day was it didn't take a lot of thinking, and for 8 games, that's definitely a plus.
Yeah, and I can understand that, but did you not worry about the free ride combo at all on day 1?
No, because I didn't picture people having multiples of it. So if they have it, there's a second grabber in the deck. So you've got one grabber for that and one for the escape pod combo. And so if they're only one in run copy, there's 3 copies of occupation. So they cancel it for a turn, and that's basically like the same as suspending it for a turn with We're Doomed combo, because you just deploy another one from hand that you've already pulled. So before with entanglements, you'd have to find your occupations. And so if they canceled it, you'd have to like find another one. Now you always have another one in hand, because the objective lets you just preemptively pull it and have it sitting there in hand. So I wasn't too worried about them canceling it. Really, the biggest counter is Leia's gun. That's just awful for the deck. And I thought we might see a little bit of that in some of the communings, but not a whole ton. So it was a calculated risk.
Okay. And then let's talk about your light side. You played Qui-Gon Community for day 1 and day 2. Were you locked into that right away, or was that something you just
since just basically when the set dropped, it was like, all right, this is what my team feels is the strongest build of communing is Qui-Muning. The deck manipulation, the peek and move stuff around just enables you to find any answers that you want. I think one big thing that really hurt light side a lot more than most people realize is the rescue in the Clouds errata. I think light and dark were a lot closer, and then you took away rescue, and light losing its ability to filter through its deck suddenly just put it a lot further behind dark side than you might think. And I understand why that errata was done and why a lot of people didn't like the fact that there was multiple rescue in almost every light side deck, but it did significantly impact light side, and Qui-Muning added back that ability to quickly filter through your deck, and adds a lot of that sort of deck manipulation for tracking. You start with a 3PO on table, so you can you can peek if you want it, you can take it, but either way you can put down cards from hand to be tracking, or I think that adds a lot of skill too. Like the deck can just be played very straightforward mains, like I'm just going to deploy my guys and peek, and if it's a good card I want, great. But if you use it to its full potential, I think there's a lot of high level strategy you can take with it.
That makes sense. So let's talk about a little bit about like your meta. Like you said, your team was really on the pulse of the meta. Was there a deck that really surprised you on day 1? People were playing.
Yeah, CCT, very much so. We totally missed that. We had talked a lot about sort of the main tech of the CCT, which was disarmed, and we had talked about various decks with multiple disarms. We didn't talk about CCT, and the reason is, I think the reason why I missed it in particular is usually CCT or Scum decks in general are pretty bad against light mains, and so I was like, all right, light mains should be good, so Scum should be bad. What I missed though is that because Luke the Last Jedi can't deploy to opponents where opponents have characters, then the court still gets crushed by communing because you can just deploy to the pit and move in.
Yeah.
But CCT not having a related battleground, you would need like a Spy or Jar Jar to deploy to the Jabba's dungeon and then move in, and that's just not going to happen. So Luke has to deploy elsewhere, and by then CCT has stacked the audience chamber by the time you can like Odin or do anything to get in there. And that was really, I think, the strength of CCT against the communing decks was like the disarms gave it a game plan, but it was the fact that Luke couldn't go attack the audience chamber that made CCT a really good call. And yeah, just totally missed that.
I find that funny because you're up in Seattle. You don't team up with guys like Wirfs, Mike Turner, and all those guys at all? Because it seemed like all of them were running it.
Yeah. No, I saw them at the indoor regional at the beginning of September, and we played some games and hung out and stuff. But yeah, they've got their own sort of group going, and I would love to team with them, but also have concerns about growing a team too big and having right now Team 5 is already quite large, and so that's definitely hang out with them and love those guys, but don't necessarily. We talk tech a little bit, but
That's
not
fair. But I mean, at this point, like it seems like there's three main teams. It's like you got KTOD, and they're affiliates like Justin Miyashiro, Greg Shaw. Like they work with some people here and there. Then you've got the new allies, who are just like Team 9 Million. Like if you're not on New Allies, what team are you on? Like they just have everybody on their team, and then it's just like you guys.
There's one you're missing. Team Moneyball, who has, and I hope I'm getting this all correctly, but it has Searson and Jellison and Matt Wadden and J-Nap and Stubley and Adam Fletcher, and all phenomenal players. And so I think they are a legit team.
Okay,
for sure.
I mean, I know J-Nap came off like a top 4 at Worlds, but I mean the rest of them.
Well, not only that, he got top 4 at Worlds. He got second at the NPC to me, and he top 8 at Worlds last year. So J-Nap's on an incredible run. But Jellison, Stubley, both super strong players.
Jellison.
Yeah.
Wow. I didn't know. Yeah. I didn't know that.
Well, I think so. I think Team Moneyball is a strong team as well. But and KTOD, unfortunately, just this isn't their era. It's pretty much just Justin trying to do it by himself right now with most of with Baroni and Chu off doing their own life stuff, and that's unfortunate. And so I know he's tried to make some alliances like with MHT and stuff, but it is he hasn't had a ton of team support lately, and I think that has reflected a little bit in his results, and really does go to show like how important that and as an aside, I think that shows why Bastion is just so ridiculous and so good, because he doesn't ever have a team. He's just by himself, and he just dominates. So,
Yeah, it's like it's Bastion, and then everybody's just trying to catch up. That's kind of how it feels like. So we talked a little bit about Dark Side and how everybody didn't really see the CCT. Now, for Light Side, a lot of people weren't aware of that Y4 Ops deck. And funny enough, like a lot of people played it, but people played map still and bring it before me. Like were you guys even like were you guys thinking about that deck at all, or was it something that you didn't think about, like worry about?
I'm gonna give you a hot take. I think Yavin 4 Ops is trash. I think it's a garbage deck.
Wow.
And I don't think it's ever been a good deck. I've never liked it, and I think it's a mistake anytime anyone plays it. Now, I will say...
Shots fired.
That's obviously a hot take because 4 people made the top 8 at Worlds with Yavin 4 Ops.
So it
was a great meta call. The reason why I don't like it is because it is not a flexible deck. It lives and dies by rock, paper, scissors. It says...
Okay.
There are some decks I'm going to beat every time, and so it was a great meta call because it's super strong against Map, it's super strong against Brigham. But if Black Sun had been in the field, those Yavin 4 Ops decks just goop. And it basically goes... It doesn't have any game plans other than it's very standard, straightforward one against every deck where I'm going to go to Yavin, I'm going to deploy Haven, I'm going to deploy my ships. If you have ships, I'll move in front and maybe I'll battle or I'll power pivot or I'll do this. But otherwise, I'm draining and liberating systems and I'm paying to drain. and I'm retrieving, and I'm paying a drain, and I'm retrieving, and maybe I try and loop like it could be worse, or we're doomed or something. But that's it. It does that every game, no matter what match it's doing. And if it can math you and beat you doing that, like against a Brigham, it wins. And if it can't, it loses. And it's very rock paper scissors, where a lot of times you flip over again and you see Y4 ops and you know if you're going to win or lose. And I don't like decks like that. And
okay.
So it was a great meta call in this environment, but I think there are easy solutions to it that and my team's already talked about. Here's some things we can do to just crush Yavin 4 ops, and I'm not worried about it as a deck at all.
Did you play against it at all?
I did. I played a game with my deal against Brad Reinhold's Yavin 4 ops, and I won.
Just so a little bit of insight there, I know that you played against Brad Reinhold's Yavin 4 ops. He took the version that I played, and he completely gutted it out of all the good cards, including a Don't Do That Again. Yeah.
That would have been a good effect to start versus deal.
Yeah. Yeah, he had that. He had 2 free ride combos in the deck. So
yeah.
I mean
I think so. Yavin 4 ops. It's like I said, it was a good meta call. I don't think it's it's obviously not a balanced deck. It's not a flexible deck, and I think it's one of those niche ones that you pull out at very certain times because you're gambling on it being a good call. And I think we've seen a lot of people do that in various online events like Gym PCs and stuff, where they're like, I'm going to pull out Yavin 4 ops, and sometimes they'll have a lot of success with it.
Or they pull out Watch Your Step Palace Raiders.
Yeah, exactly. And I've been known to do that myself, where I go, hey, I think Asteroid Sanctuary is good right now.
Yeah.
But as like a solid balanced deck, I'm not a fan.
Okay, that's fair. I mean, I at this point, I don't think anybody can really.
And here's the thing: I think Barry kept it for day 2, but I think everyone else switched off of it. Because they knew if you're expecting Y40, there's just very simple things you can do. You throw in your Search and Destroy, and then you get into the counter wars, or maybe they have Alter or whatever. But it's just when it's expected, it's not a strong deck, and I think people thought it would be unexpected. And I think it was.
I know Barry kept it. He advanced out of the top 8 by beating Tom Haight with it. Really, really interestingly enough. Tom played Bring Up Before Me in the top 8, and again, just a really bad matchup for Tom, as you said. But no, I like the deck. It's kind of cute, like you said. It's kind of cute. It is a niche deck. I know a lot of people played it. There was just walking around, there was a lot of interesting types of deck. So we saw that JNAP played Prophet and Agents of the Black Sun. Robbie making worlds with WAP after everybody's like, WAP is just really, really bad. And dude goes, 3-1 with it? I think his only loss was to Greg Shaw.
Yeah, he plays WAP really well. I remember last year at the Online Worlds, I was doing some commentary in the pod sections for pods I wasn't a part of. And I came in on a game of, I think it was his WAP versus Goglin's TTO, and commentated part of it, and Robbie was playing the deck phenomenally. I was saying this is a good line of play, and he was doing it, and he was just he does know the deck in and out and play it very well, and that's a huge strength. Like JNAP, you mentioned Prophet and Black Sun, those are his bread and butter. He plays them both really well, and JNAP beat me with his Prophet on day 1, and he beat me with his Black Sun on day 2. So they're strong decks, and he plays them really well, and there's a lot to be said for that.
So what made, besides the fact that you wanted to essentially outplay your opponents on day 2, what made you decide to go with Black Sun? Was it a counter for Y4 ops, or was it just a deck that you knew? Why in particular Black Sun?
I do have a lot of experience history with Black Sun. I feel like I can play it really well. The main thing was it's flexible. It's game plan. I wasn't worried about whatever I could face. We threw in some disarms for communing, but yeah, it crushes Yavin 4 ops if people had decided to stick with that, and otherwise it just there aren't many bad matchups.
Okay.
There are just like interesting ones, like Prophet. Prophet's one where it's like if they get a gift going, that could be really bad, but you have answers with Probot and things like that, and Uta Guta solo, and so the question just becomes like it becomes a chess match, and but Black Sun gives you the opportunity to be in every game, and it gives you the opportunity to make good plays, and so I felt like I want to give myself the chance to outplay anyone, and so win or lose, it will be less on a matchup. Nobody's gonna flip over a light side, and I'm like, oh, I've got an auto loss with Black Sun. And so there are harder matches certainly, but I didn't want to lose to a matchup. I wanted to lose because someone outplayed me.
So let's talk about your top 8 and your games you faced. So first round you had played against Greg Shaw. And I know that was a repeat of like the Continentals, the John Anderson Memorial Tournament that you guys played in a couple of years ago and everything. Game 1, you played Qui-Gon Communing versus his his Shadow Collective. I've been doing that all week, like confusing the two for some reason. But like going into that, how did you like? You play that deck, and are you thinking to yourself like he's not going to be able to hit me? You know. Like, what can Shadow Collective do against me? Like, what was your thought process once he flipped over Shadow Collective?
I was super happy. I think Communing generally has a good matchup against Shadow Collective. I think it is hard to hit those immunity Jedis, especially with Wisas, and I've got a deflection in there, and I have Obi's Journal, and so I think it's advantaged Communing. But he played it phenomenally. You know, he pulled out the 2-0 first light sight and moved Maul there. And the next, and I think he played a Battleground one from his hand, or vice versa. But he had the Battleground sight and the and I got throne roomed. I got no activation, no Wisa, no speak, none with my peak or anything like that. And so I decided to throw Luke down to his first light sight, and I think I had the journal too. So I threw Luke down, knowing that if he moved over there, Luke couldn't deploy. I wanted to get Luke where the action was because I had Run Luke Run. And then he just went over to his defensive perimeter and put the other first light sight with the Twix in the middle. So Luke was stuck on one end, and then the Twix in the middle, and then the other first light sight Battleground. And then Maul and friends were over at the defensive perimeter, and I was getting no activation. So I eventually had to go like Leia and Lando over to my Lars farm just for some used pulls. And it just kind of went downhill from there. I was actually pretty happy to whittle him down to 13. I think he made some end game differential mistakes. He was peeling from deck to some of my drains on the final turns when he had a big hand that he should have lost from. The very last battle, I like suicided Obi in, and he shot him, and then he peeked with Ruck and took one of the cards into hand, and then I just took Overflow to end the game. So he did a couple little things that at the end that I think cost him in terms of differential. And those little things can add up in Star Wars.
Yeah, and but he still won by, what was it, 11 on that
13.
game? Or 13. Yeah, and in a game that, like you said, you feel like you're favored against because of the matchups.
Right. I was happy. At first, I was happy when I saw the matchup, and then it just all went downhill, and then I was happy to cut it to 13 by the time it happened.
And then let's talk about Game 2. Game 2 was his Yoda Communing versus your Agents of the Black Sun. Again, he's up by 13 at this point. What were you thinking when he flipped over Yoda Communing?
I was thinking, I expected a different build than what it turned out to be. It turned out to be a lot of ground stuff, and I was thinking he'd like do Camino into the clone chambers and like have at least a couple ships, Han Chewie Falcon, that sort of stuff. And so I was a little uncertain all game because I didn't know what to expect. And I had to do a very weird mix of like playing cautiously because I don't know what he has, and like playing aggressive because I'm down by 13 in the match. But I just tried to do some like, let me just get some damage through, get to a Battleground site, set up a ship so I can be doing free damage, get my Shadows ping going, and then attack his Jedi where I can, using stuff like Cad Bane and Aura and things like that. And I had multiple disarms. Of course, he had an Odin at one point for one of them. But yeah, it was a good chess match.
Yeah, and from the looks of it, like I know he came down really early with Mace down to Coruscant. He set up the two sites so that way it was really hard for you to set up resistance. And then he got out the 3-2, the Naboo generator core. You attempted to Ellis away. He had to cancel.
Yeah,
But
that's
let's
so. I
go
think
over
you hit
that
on the
turn.
key point that lost him the game. So he was piled at my swamp and piled at my Shizor's palace, and I was at the middle one, the uplink station. And so I was only at two battlegrounds, and he was draining a bunch at those sites. I got U3PO to one of them, but he was still basically just getting me down a bunch in damage, and I couldn't resistance. So he was draining like 3 and 3 until the U3PO came out at one of them. But I deployed Probot over to his Boss Nass chambers, and he puts Qui-Gon in front. And then he plays the 3-2 next to it, and he battles and kills the Probot, and then he moves over. And at the time, this looks like a completely reasonable play. Like, of course, if you put the 3-2 out, moving out Qui-Gon means great. Now you've got an extra drain site putting pressure on, and so now he can drain at the sewer and there and start getting me down more in damage. But what ended up happening is I was able to do a big Ellis over, which he canceled with quite a mercenary, and then I was able to no escape and do the Ellis again and kill his Qui-Gon and then move over to the Boss Nass chambers. And now I was at 3 battlegrounds between the system, the uplink station, and the 3-2. So resistance kicked in, and now I'm training 3 at the 3-2 plus 2 at the Boss Nass chambers. I think if he had just gone in front of Probot, battled, killed the Probot, and just left Qui-Gon stuck at the Boss Nass chambers, stranded, he wins that game because I have nowhere to go wide to. I have no third battleground for resistance. At the time it seemed like a reasonable play, but in hindsight, that is what let me back in the match.
Okay, so then on your second round, you had to play Jared Napolitano, who, like you said, he was the number 1 seed going into the top 8. He's been playing ridiculously well, and he's on Agents of Black Sun and Prophet. How did you feel going up against Jared in that second match?
Okay, I didn't love the matches. I was expecting that. I knew I could draw Jared the first round, and I also knew if we both won, even if we didn't face each other first, we would the second because he was the top seed and I was the bottom. And I figured he would stick with his Prophet and Black Sun. So it wasn't a surprise, but it wasn't matchups that I loved because I especially knew he would know the matches better than I would because he plays them so much, especially his Prophet against my Black Sun. He's played both sides of that so many times. And so I felt okay, but not comfortable, I guess.
And again, he started out with Black Sun. You went with the Qui-Gon communing. I didn't have the... you weren't on stream for that, and... I had to watch Barry and Matt Scott play theirs, so how about the streams and everything. I missed a lot of the action on that. So can you tell us what the key points of that game were?
Yeah, that's one of my fuzzier games. I think okay, so he did his normal I'm gonna move out and flip, put Shizor out. He purposely did a I'm going to not deploy my other Shizor sites. I'm going to pull Shizor's Palace with Vigo, but not use that to pull other sites so that when he moves over Shizor, Master Luke or Luke Last Jedi has nowhere to deploy. Versus if he had pulled the uplink station or sewer, I could just plop Luke there. He didn't want that, so he didn't pull an extra site, which of course is the correct play, and he knew that. And so, but I didn't want him to just be flipped and doing damage and that sort of stuff. So my turn 1, I went Lars Farm, Luke, use Pile Pull, I think probably pick some activation so that I could flip him back. And so then he basically ended up spreading over Coruscant while I just paid 2 to drain at the Lars Farm all game. And I think eventually I Nabrined over or got an Odin, but he just started piling on the damage. He got a ship up to space and he was getting Emperor ping, and I think at one point he got a U3PO going over on Coruscant. I had deployed Mace or something like that. And so I was doing 2 damage over on Tatooine and paying for it, and he was doing 3 to 4, and that consistent damage just wore me down eventually, and he took a win by 11.
Okay. And then game two was your agents versus his prophet. I did see the start of that where you started RSing and Duro, so that way you could pull the Probot. Like I think that's the way to go with any of these scum decks is to get the Probot for as use a gift. I think that was smart. But what was like the key point in that game? Like again, he was up by 11, and it seemed like that was ridiculous, like a ridiculously tight game with some.
Yeah,
I don't want to say mistakes at the end, but some questionable plays.
I'm not entirely sure what his game plan was, because so what ended up happening is I moved Shizu over and flipped, and I got a ship to space and stuff, and then and I had Imper at the middle site with like a EPP Dengar or something, and he went with Luke, the Rebel Scout Luke, who can deploy anywhere. He was purposely avoiding deploying to me to not let me Shizor's bounty someone and then be able to move my bounty hunters around and everything. So, so he went with Luke to my sewer and backed him up with Din, the Mandalorian.
Okay.
And I don't understand why he put him there instead of over on Tatooine, where he'd flip me back just as easy, but also be able to get a use pile pull. And I guess the reason was he wasn't ready to flip, wasn't ready to contest the AC, and so he couldn't drain on Tatooine. So he was like, let me just start getting some drains at the sewer, and then I'll go flip later. But it turns out he never flipped. He never even attempted to go to the audience chamber. So he got Luke going for some drains, and I went to Jabba's palace, and I went to all my other Coruscant sites, and I was sitting at the AC, and I basically just spread out and started doing a bunch of damage. Same thing he did to me in the first game. I was just out damaging him. Eventually, I got a U-3PO to his site, and he kept trying to a gift. Like, he had gifted once, and I broke its cover. I don't know why he did that, that one, because he didn't seem to have... I don't know. But later, he moved back 3PO out. He played Obi, and he used a 2-card swap, and he gifted again, and then he tried to Odin it out, and we had a rules question if he could Odin the undercover spy and that sort of stuff. And he could, but I had a sense for it. So I sensed the Odin and broke the cover again, and then he kind of he got a little desperate with like deploying Chewie and Lando onto my Mara out of Jabba's palace. But I had a barrier, and so he battled anyway with Chewie, and I had a Greedo to react, and he had no force left to swing. So it was just Chewie with no swing and no destiny. I opted not to hit him with Mara because that would give him a destiny. So he just lost Chewie, and then Lando was just sitting there, and I was able to kill him. And late game he went with Leia over to the battle planes, just trying to get some more damage in. But I still had more characters left, and I just went and killed her. And so I won that one by 15.
Yeah, and I will say he had draw their fire on the table, so that way you were able to.
Yeah.
He initiated a few times with the draw their fire, but I think you got more use out of it than he did.
Yeah, it was definitely a double-edged sword.
And then on the finals, you got to play against Matt Scott. Again, Matt went first picking. He went with his CCT versus your Qui-Gon communing. That's right. And let's go a little bit over about that game, because what was interesting was during that game, right before it started, Phil and Brian Fred came out and were like, hey, we're going to do commentary with you. And I'm just like, okay, I got two teammates of them. Then Justin Desai came over and was like, okay, he's doing commentary. So the booth was really full. Nice. And Justin was like, oh, man, like, here's the line Matt has to take. And I guess Matt didn't take it. So let's go talk about a little bit about that game in particular.
Yeah. So one of my two losses, and I mentioned the other one earlier of my Dark Deal loss to JNAP's Prophet on day one. But my other loss on day one was to Matt Scott with my communing and him playing CCT. So we had already played this exact matchup the day before, and he beat me. However, in the interim, Lee Edwards on my team came up with the brilliant idea to switch For Luck out for I Must Be Allowed to Speak. And with the reasoning of we can't deploy Last Jedi to the audience chamber versus CCT, but if we just pull the farm and put Luke there and move him in, then we're also getting use pile pulls and we're happy.
Yeah.
And so that alone, probably about 7 cards changed between the 2 days lists, but that was the big key change. And that alone turned what was a loss the day before into just like a crushing victory, because everything then went right for me. So that game can he did the normal turn 1 Fett move over. My turn was Luke to the Lars farm with Journal and Saber and pull, and I had a speak in my opening hand, and then I used pile pulled with Luke, and I was looking at either a Clash. There was like 5 cards obviously because I played Luke, but Clash was one of them that was tempting. Ray was one that was tempting because she would just get me another use pull the next turn. I opted for Wisa because I was like, I want to just get a ton of activation and just steamroll over him. So even though I already had Speak, I was like, I don't really need the activation, but I'm just going to go for it. So I grabbed Wisa, I pulled that. So now I had all my activation out and Luke sitting there. And then the next turn, he backs up the audience chamber. He misses his scum pull.
That was big. That was really big.
So he's got to pay 2 extra for aliens that turn. One per, but he deploys 2 aliens, and that costs him 2 extra force cumulative. And then my turn, I just deploy Mace and Saber and move Luke in. And so he backs up the audience chamber again with like Proxima. And the turn before it was Django and Greedo. And and he just passes turn so I'm anticipating Stunning Leader or projective telepathy or something like that. So I deploy Obi-Wan, Leia, who gets barriered because he's anticipating her gun. And I battle. And I'm able to hit Greedo, and sorry about the mess him. That way I don't have to pay for all my other shots. And then I'm able to hit Proxima and hit one of the Fets, and the other one dies to attrition. And he gets 2 Destiny because of Proxima, but it's just enough to clear Obi. So the end of my second turn, I'm sitting with a Mace with Saber, a Luke with Saber and Journal, and a General Leia in his audience chamber, and he has nothing on the table and no captive.
Yeah.
And so then it was from there. It was just a steamroll. He had to just draw for a couple turns, and then he deployed IG-88 in the Slave 1 up to Nalhada just so he could get some battlegrounds established. And at that point, I was able to just cycle around, and I won that one by 32.
Yeah, and that was a pretty bad beat. Like, I know that beforehand, even Justin Desai, Brian, Fred, even Phil was just like, if Matt puts the dungeon in between the farm and the audience chamber, it slows you down, or you just don't even put down the audience chamber in the dungeon until, whenever they want, just set up a Cloud City drain. I think there was a lot of options for him in that game, and I don't know if it was just under the pressure or...
Well, the way Luke got stuck against Greg with the 2-0 Shadow Collective First Light Sight in the middle, I think that was frustrating, and I think putting that dungeon in between would have similarly been quite frustrating, having to march into the audience chamber over multiple turns. But yeah, it was one of those things where I think Matt Scott is a really good and really underrated player. Like I said, he beat me on day 1. He's knocked me out of an NPC before, so I have a lot of respect for Matt. That game, just everything went right for me. And it's one of those games where if you're sitting on the other side of the table, you're just like, there was nothing I could do. He just had everything.
Yeah, it does happen, unfortunately. And then game 2 was Agents of the Black Sun versus his OA. I know you got out early, and he was actually able to flip turn 1, and that was really kind of cool.
He did, and that was the play he had to make. That was, he was playing it right, but I just had to get him down in life force and make him deploy some stuff. And eventually by turn 4 or 5, it was just like he was at 22 in life force and like 7 in hand or 9 in hand. And it was like, even if every card in his hand was a used interrupt, he can't get to enough life force. And so I was just like, all right, I just battle and suicide in my ship and peel from my... I was able to activate everything but 1 on that turn. And so it's like, if I pay 1 to battle, I'm down by more than 2 in power. I decline Destiny. I lose 1 from used that I paid to battle. I lose 1 from reserve that I couldn't activate, and then draw phase, just draw everything. Game over. So basically, I just conceded when he was at 22, because at that point it was my 14th game of Star Wars for the weekend, and I was like, I started my turn and I started planning because we had gone back and forth. Like, he played a Jin to my Emperor's site, the Imperial Square, to drain 3, and I came down with a P-59 and like killed it. He used their tracking us to make me miss the shot, and so we just bounced off each other. And then he like Jedi leved her and played her again to the site. And I had Afra in hand, and so I was like, okay, I'm gonna Afra and attack with P-59 again. And I was like, I've got these characters. I'm gonna deploy. I had like EPP Mara and Dr. E in hand, and so I was like, I'm gonna deploy here, and maybe I'm gonna move into Ray's hut to start doing more damage. And so I was like planning out my turn, and I'm like, why am I still playing this game? I'm tired. I was like, I'm just gonna battle here and end the game. And he's like, okay.
That's fair.
But yeah, it's so sort of an anticlimactic finish because of that first game. But that's one of those things that happens. Mishki and Bastion's game like a few years ago was like that, where game one Bastion does quite a mercenary non-V on Alice and just blows out Mishki's map, and then they play a couple turns to the other side of the throne room, and Mishki's like, yep, not happening. So it happens sometimes.
Yeah. So speaking about Bastion and everything, you and him are the only Star Wars CCG players now to win back-to-back worlds. How does that feel, like, to be in that company?
That's cool. I mean, it's more that, I think, sounds to me like more one of those stats like when you're making fun of baseball announcers when they're like, only players on the second Tuesday of the month when it's raining have hit this many home run. Like it's a very niche statistic. I think the more broader statistic than the back-to-back idea is the two championships idea. And if you look at that, I'm the sixth person to do that. So we have Bastion, Chu, Emil, Kevin Shannon, and Justin Desai. Yep. And now me. Yeah. So like, I'm happy with that. I'm the whole like me and Bastion are the only ones back to back. Whatever. I'm happy to be in sort of the club of Kevin Shannon, Justin Desai, Bastion, Emil, and Chu, and now me. Like, that's great.
That's fair.
Those are all amazing players.
And it had to be extra special because this is the weekend where you got inducted into the Hall of Fame. Like, we have not even touched upon that yet. Like, yeah, you started off the weekend great. Like, you got to have Phil give you your trophy for that. He gave like a nice little ballad, the Ballad of Captain Redbeard, which I noticed you just lost it now. Like,
it comes and goes. Yeah. That was a good callback from him, and Phil did a lot of research to write that poem. He went on old deck tech archives and was reading old tournament reports, looking at like my deck list names, and he was just like, he put a lot of effort into that, and I really appreciated that. And Phil's just a great guy. I teared up a little when he was saying that, and yeah, it was just an honor to have him do that. I didn't feel, I was talking with a friend, a Star Wars friend earlier today, actually. We're all kind of our own harshest critic. And when I got the Hall of Fame thing, I didn't yet quite feel like I had earned it. And people told me that I had, and they were like, well-deserved, things like that. And I felt like I was almost there. But not like a clear-cut case. Like a case could be made for me putting me in the Hall of Fame, but also it wasn't just like a clear-cut, like, oh yeah, of course, no-brainer sort of thing.
I think you're being a little too modest. You've won what? You've won Player of the Year 3 times. You've won every major under the sun, with the exception of Endor Grand Prix, which I'm just in shock about. You've won Worlds now twice. You led the Team USA in the first ever victory of the Outrider Cup. I mean, what else? What else is there?
I've been very fortunate, and I've won a fair number of events. It didn't quite feel like I was there. I was like, okay, maybe I deserve it, but it's not a clear, like, resounding. To me, it wasn't. And so then when I made the top 8, I was like, all right, cool. I'm glad I just didn't scrub. On the weekend I get inducted to the Hall of Fame, that I go 3 and 5 or something, and like that would have been embarrassing. But then, yeah, of course, winning the second Worlds, winning it back to back and in person especially, did validate that. Did make me go, okay, cool. Like that, I do feel it's more earned.
And now nobody can be like, oh, Joe won the Worlds when it was online, no asterisk. No, you can't. Now you actually have some evidence to back up the fact that it was an asterisk world.
You can always, there's always like something you can make up of like, oh, well, Bastion wasn't here this year because of COVID. He wasn't allowed to travel here. And so you could say, oh, it was a World Championships that wasn't open to everyone. And that's fair. And you could say last year It was.
Menzel was there.
Minzo was there. He had his essential work allowed him to come over and then also play. But and it's true. But you can do that for everyone. You could say, oh well, Bastion when he won in 2001 at Freedom Con, it wasn't a real Decipher Con because they canceled that because of 9/11, and so then that wasn't a real world. Like if anyone wants to hate on it, whatever. You can always come up with some reason. I'm pretty happy with my results recently.
And that, like you said, that's 100% fair. Like, you played the field, you won the field, and so I don't know. Like, if any, speaking of the field, like I know a lot of people were like, "Oh yeah, Joe's not going to repeat. I'm going to take the field," and a lot of people felt that way going in with like the fantasy contest. You were at 70 points and get.
I felt that way. I thought no one would pick me. I know. I thought no one would pick me. I thought that was very silly that some people did. They had a lot more faith in me than I did. And but the interesting thing was, even though I won, none of I think there was 4 people who picked me. None of them were even in the top handful of people. Because I was so expensive, it handicapped the rest of their team by not having enough points to pick other good players. And so you
just had to pick Robbie and Barry. That's it. I mean, Barry came in
and buy a lotto ticket
Robbie
while you're doing it.
Like 7th, so that would have won.
Yeah, it's true. You would have had to pick very exactly specific people if you're going to spend 70 points on someone, and that's even if they win first place. And there's certainly no guarantee of that. So I do think it was still overpriced, and obviously if it's overpriced, even knowing that I get first. But anyway, I do like that Matt Wadden, who was volunteering for that, mixed it up and changed the point system around. I thought that was cool, and he'll look at some tweaks going forward.
Yeah. So we alluded to this earlier. What's next for you, Joe? What's the next big thing for you?
So next, we got the Outrider Cup coming up. Mm-hmm. That will be fun, with all the top US and top Euro players. We have the OCS Top 16 coming up. That'll be fun. I'm especially excited about those 2 events because they're just full of top players, right? The Outrider Cup is literally the best of the best between the 2 teams, and then the OCS is the top 16 players as determined over 6 months of competitive play, and so it's just crazy competitive, good players, and they're both all online, which means we either get to see it live or we get replays. And so I'm betting every game of every one of those will be commentated. I'm gonna do some commentary on it myself if I can, and so I'm just super pumped about that. I love not only playing but watching good Star Wars, and that will just be filled with amazing players giving us great things. So I'm pumped for fall Star Wars.
And so speaking of which, the OCS playoff draft, or when the top 16 is going to be announced, is going to be this Sunday again at the 17th at 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific. You are currently the 12 seed. Who do you see picking? Do you see somebody picking you, or do you think you're going to be stuck with like Werfs or Joker King? Like you're going to be like one of those
the last two OCSs in a row, I've been the last one picked. And so 2 years ago, Baroni and I were the last 2 picked, and so we were faced off. And last year, Eric and I were the last 2 picked, and so we faced off. So I was the last one picked the last 2 years in a row, and coming off Player of the Year for both of those years. And so I wouldn't be surprised if that happens again. However, I could also see someone like Bastion, just as a fun thing, going like, "Hey, I didn't get a chance to play at Worlds this year. Let's go, Joe." Or even Decide being like, "Hey, I didn't make the top 8 cut this year, and I could have taken you out. Let's go."
Oh, that's spicy.
Yeah, I'm not saying they necessarily would, and I think they both are strategic enough to understand that, hey, if I'm gonna face Joe, it's fine to face him and knock him out in a later round. No need to take that on too early. They're both very strategic, smart players. Yes. But I think that would be the reason someone would pick me. I don't think they would be picking me as the weakest link. But otherwise, yeah, I could see just not being picked. And that's fine. I'm excited to see what the matchups are and who's playing whom, and
so is there anybody you want to face? Like, if you were going to face somebody, is there anybody you would want to face? I'm not saying based on like strength schedule. I'm talking about like you said, like just for the best Star Wars CCG like being played,
Yeah.
or just
You
somebody
know,
you want to face. Somebody that you've never played
someone
before.
who I would want to face, who is, and not because I actually think he would be difficult. I'm pulling up the list right now. I think he'd be very difficult to beat, but he's always fun to play. Is Chris Werfs?
Okay.
I love playing against Werfs. I never have unenjoyable games against him. And so let's see who else are on the list.
I don't know. I kind of want to see you against Joker King because he's the only person this year to beat you.
Yeah, he knocked me out of the gym PC earlier this year. Luckily, I got my revenge in the regular NPC we faced off, and I was able to advance past. But those weren't easy games either. Yeah, I don't know. I think one of the toughest outs is Charlie. He was just on an amazing OCS hot streak. He made the top 8 at Nationals. He barely missed the cut this year, losing to Hayes in his last game. Due to some really bad luck. Otherwise, he would have been 6-2 as well and created a playing game. So I think Charlie will be a tough out. But yeah, there's a lot of good players in it. There's not anyone who I'm like, I think they'll be an easy. Everyone earned their way in, whether that was from having an 11-1 month or just consistently going like 10-2 or better, like month after month after month after month, and accumulating a lot of points.
So, besides yourself, and I'm going to say besides Bastion too, because he won it last year, who do you think is the favorite to win the OCS playoffs? If you had to pick somebody now.
Justin Desai.
Really?
I mean, some people are like, oh, he missed the top 8 at Nationals, or oh, he missed the top 8 at Worlds, or whatever. Justin Desai don't underestimate that guy. He's good at Star Wars.
Justin Desai was the 9th seed at Nationals and at Worlds. So, if that's the case, like, the dude has something to prove at this point.
Yeah, I don't know that he has much to prove. He has 2 Worlds titles and plenty of other ones, but I think there's so much variance, little slumps, and like we talked about earlier, it's sort of the lack of team support. But before these last 2 events, he was 13 for 13 in the post reset era for making day 2's top 8 cuts at events. He had been to 13 events after the reset, and he had made the top 8 at every single one of them until this summer. And so, and he's won a OCS playoffs before, I believe, so that's a no-brainer for me. When you look at the list and you say, besides me and Bastion, well, there's only one other Worlds winner on the list there, and he's won it twice. Bastion, myself, and Desai have all won it twice, and Bastion 3 times, of course. Nobody else has won Worlds. So, I think those are clearly, it's hard to say anyone but those 3 is a favorite, but there's a lot of amazing players who are playing. MHT is a fantastic player, Charlie, like we mentioned. And then there's a lot of dark horses like Brad Kipple or Paul Myers who have just been like winning lots of Star Wars games. And or Tom, who's just always dangerous and always, whenever you play Tom, you're just like...
He seems like he makes it like every year. Like,
yeah,
I don't know,
right. And that's hard to do because
so
it's
good.
Right. It is hard to qualify for the top 16. And I think he didn't play in it the first year, and the last 3 in a row, he's made the top 16. Yeah. So it's, it's going to be a lot of good competition.
Awesome. Yeah, I can't wait till Sunday to see who picks who, on live. Are you going to be available on Sunday during the broadcast?
Yeah, I'll be there. I'll be live. Cause it's theoretically at 12. I could have a pick. If nobody picks all the people before me, and it's ostensibly like I did a little like, okay, what if this person picked this person, and it ended up where unless people were, because if you look at the people below me are Charlie, Silverglen, B. Fred, and Tom, like they're good players. If some of those ones below me don't get picked, I might end up with a pick. So we'll see.
And if you don't get picked, who are you gonna pick? If that happens, who would you pick?
If I have to pick from one of the 4 people below me, I don't know. I'd discuss it with my team. I haven't.
Come on, give us a name right now. I'm putting you on the spot.
All right, if the draft was literally right now,
Draft is right
so
now.
I might change this, but the draft is literally right now, and I'm picking one of the four below me. It's probably Tom.
Ooh, okay. I think that's a solid pick. Like I said, Tom is a really good player. He knows the meta. He plays interesting decks. Like you said, Charlie is one of those players who he's always in play for a top 8. You know, he's always good. Silver Glenn, he knows what he plays. He plays him really well. I don't know. I thought you would go with B Fred. Like I could see that. I could see that being fun.
I think B Fred's been in a little bit of a slump, but B Fred is just always dangerous. And I think picking someone who is a really, really good player just because they haven't top 8'd in a little while is a mistake. That Star Wars skill doesn't just go away, and you can have some bad variants and hit your bad matchups and not make a top 8, which is why it's insane that Chu is 11 for 11 and Desai was 13 for 13 in top 8s, because it's really hard to do. I'm nowhere close to that in percentage. I'm at indoor in 2020, right before COVID, I missed the top 8. I was the bubble person. So the fact that B Fred hasn't hit a top 8 in a little while doesn't mean a whole lot to me. I think he's just a very dangerous, very good player.
Yeah, I want to say at that event he was in the top 2. He finished at the top 2 and lost to Hayes in the finals. So yeah, I mean he's a good player. Like he hasn't done anything really late for me lately, but he's still a good player.
Yep, for sure.
Okay. So again, I want to say congratulations, Joe, for winning the entire thing, for winning the Star Wars CCG Worlds Championship, and being that it is your worlds, your universe at this point, we're all just living in it.
Well, something like that, but if it's my universe, it's really just this community being awesome, and I had a ton of fun this weekend, and not just because I won, but just because of getting to be around everybody again, and getting to play games of Star Wars, other games, going and getting food, just hanging out, and everyone seemed pretty happy all weekend,
Yeah,
and like
they really did.
Life a lot of times adulting, and there's a grind, and I gotta go like change the laundry and all this, right? I got kids waking up soon, all this different stuff, but like a weekend away of where you're just like happy and having fun with friends, like phenomenal.
It feels really good. It really does. Like I don't know, I can't speak for everybody, but it was just an amazing weekend. Like
Yep.
I know, like you said, you won it and everything, but it was a really good weekend. And just to see, we had 22 people for the poker tournament on a Thursday. On Thursday,
It definitely seems like more people
great.
are, and we had a ton of people Sunday night playing games. It seems like more people are coming in early on Thursdays and staying on Sundays and leaving Mondays. So I think we had more people gaming late Sunday night than ever. Like it's just turning more into a big party weekend, and it's fun.
But I mean, I will say this though: we're all getting older, and it's staying up late like that is just rough.
Oh yeah, I mean that part's rough, but we also have a little bit more money that we can afford to take the extra day off, and you know what I mean, to rather than like, okay, I need to get back to, I can't afford to miss another day of work sort of thing. Like some people are relaxing a little on that, and it's nice to just be able to have a weekend away.
Yeah. But yeah, like I said, we had 22 people for the poker tournament. We had 15 people signing up for the throwback event. That was great. Steve Skilton won that. I want to say we had like 12 teams for the team event. That was really fun to watch.
Congrats on that.
I didn't do it. You know what? You said it earlier. Like you were like Y4 Ops. I liked it. It won me the team event. I got nothing wrong with it. Like you might say it's like not a good meta event, but
I think it can be a good meta call, but it's not a good deck.
That's fair. And then I want to say we had another about close to 30 for the consolation. So yeah, there was a lot of games being played this past weekend. So I'm definitely looking forward to the NPC is going to be in January. Are you going to go to the NPC?
I will be there for sure. I'm debating taking a tournament off from playing and maybe trying to do some commentary, because I really love commentary and I miss it. And
Yeah.
my plan is always, and I said before Worlds in the Slack like streaming channel, I was like, I call dibs on day 3 commentary if I don't make the cut. I want to do commentary, and then I made the cut, and it was
You know,
I
you don't have, like you said, you don't have to play in a tournament. Let somebody else win for once.
right, yeah. So I'm debating. I'm the only my only hesitation is since I have won a few tournaments in a row, do I need to just like do I need to try and keep that rolling?
No.
And once the streak is broken, go ahead and take an event off? Like do I so that's sort of
You're in the Hall
my
of Fame.
the question I'm
You're in the
wrestling
Hall
with.
of Fame. Settle down.
Yeah. Yeah,
Give-
but
give-
I might
give somebody
take
else
an
a
event
chance.
off. I will be there regardless. I'm there in January. I haven't
Okay.
yet decided if I'm playing or I'm going to take the event off and commentate. We'll see.
Okay. That's good to hear. Okay. So again, thank you, Joe, for coming on today. It is always a blast to have you on. I know I joke around saying that I'm getting tired of interviewing you after an event and everything, but it's always great having you on, man. And
Thanks,
again,
Dan, and thanks for Holotheatre, and it was great seeing you this weekend.
Yeah.
And yeah, man, we'll see you at January and
Hopefully.
Holotheatre in the meantime.
Awesome. Okay. Again, that was Joe Olson. We're going to go back to Scott and I here for your regular show. And then we'll have more Star Wars CCG stuff later on. Okay, everybody. So that was the interview that I did earlier with Joe Olson. Again, that was a pre-recorded interview. So I know a lot of you guys were watching in the chat and be like, what's going on? Is this a pre-recorded interview and everything? Scott Lingrell stepped out. He's got family stuff to do, being that it's super late over there on the East Coast. That is all we have, though, for tonight's episode. So, again, I want to thank Joe and Scott for coming on. Again, this weekend is the... again, this weekend is going to be the pick'em for the OCS playoffs. That is going to happen at 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific. So make sure you tune into that. Chris Gogolin is going to be hosting that. It's going to be on the official PC channel and everything. Tomorrow, unfortunately, for the next 2 weeks or so, I'm not going to be on Holotheatre. I'm actually going to be out for the next few weeks. I'm going to be I'm going to be recuperating after neck surgery tomorrow. So, I'm not going to be doing anything Star Wars related for the next couple of weeks as I recover. So I know Jared Napolitano is going to be stepping in, Batmouse, Robbie, maybe Kendall, maybe Matt, maybe Justin, Miyashiro. All those guys are going to step in and fill, make sure that Holotheatre continues over the next few weeks. So make sure you thank them for all that. But yeah, that's all we got going on. There's not going to be any deck building challenge for this week, for this month, being that there was a lot going on and everything. We'll have one back next month, so make sure you tune into that. And being that we had 2 people only submit decks last time, we're going to make sure that both of them get the prizes and everything. So. Again, that's all we got for Holotheatre. So, again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in a couple of weeks. Take care, and good night.